Hi there, welcome to HatchXR, a VR coding competition conducted by CAM K12. In order to help you in this competition, I have created a VR crash course tutorial using Hatch. Now, what does it mean to build a VR experience? Or should we just say a VR game in 3D space? Let's try and break down what it means to play a game. Whenever we try and play a game, the player has two objectives to achieve. The first objective is a particular assignment that they need to complete, and the second is to avoid any challenges that may be thrown towards the player. In this classic re-rendition of the Dino game that you get when Chrome does not have internet, Dino is trying to score as many points as he can. But in trying to score these points and reach one of the higher leaderboards, he has to avoid all the cactus that's coming his way. As you saw, as soon as I made a 500 mark, the game gave me a boost, which is very exhilarating for the player. However, if it's just too easy to score points, the game will not be much of a challenge. Hence, we will need to put some obstacles in the way of the player for him or her to get a really fun experience out of playing my game. I hope that was a quick description of what goes into building a game. So essentially, you need to give your player a task to achieve and you need to throw obstacles at him, which makes it difficult for him or her to achieve the task. And because of these two things, games become fun and exciting. So let's start with HatchXR. Let's go ahead and build a game keeping certain tasks in mind which our player will have to accomplish and certain challenges that our player will have to overcome. When you open a new Hatch project, this is the basic world view that you get. You have a ground object, you have a sphere, you have a box, which is essentially a cube, and a cylinder. There are certain other things like the camera, as you can see on the left panel over here, and the player who, and essentially the camera is basically a child object of the player because the camera is the player's eyes. When I press play, whatever is seen by the camera is seen by the player. Great. So apart from another object called light, we have essentially covered what are the basic objects that HatchXR gives you when you build a new project. Great. Now let's come up with certain objectives that we want our player to achieve. Now, one of the main objectives that we want to achieve for our player is movement. Now in Hatch, this happens by default. Do you see the option here, free motion? The player can move freely in all directions and through surfaces. Now let's just see what this looks like in play mode for the player. As you can see, if I click on the screen, I can look left, right, up, down, front, and even back. If I want to move, I can press the W key on my laptop. I can press the S key on my laptop and it will move me front and back. In case I want to move left and right, I can press the A key and the D key. Left and right. In case I want to go higher, I can simply look up and press W. Go forward. Go towards where my cursor is pointing. And now you see I have achieved some considerable height. As I look down and I press the S key to move back, I go higher, but I look downwards towards my scene. Now essentially, I am moving in 3D space. So for the computer to understand where I am, it needs some numbers. When I move front and back, I am moving across a number. This is called the Z-axis. As I move front, the Z axis decreases. I'll show you a sample in a minute. As I move back, the Z axis increases. As I go higher up, it is my Y axis that's increasing. And if I look down now, I can go back down, and this would mean my Y axis is decreasing. Great. Finally, what if I want to move left and right? In order to move left and right, I can press the A key and the D key. So that is the X axis along which I am moving. As I move to the left, the X axis decreases, and as I move right, the X axis increases. Great. Let's come to design. Now maybe I do not want to always fly in my game. So what do? I select my player and I go to collide with surfaces. Player collides with all surfaces in the scene. Cannot pass through objects, jumping is supported. Let's see how this works. Great. So when I press S and D keys, I see that I turn left and right. But when I press W, I move in the direction of where my cursor is pointed. If I look up, definitely I cannot fly. So this is how the game can act like a first-person shooter. If I press space, yes, I can jump. I have that ability to jump. I've jumped over the cube, and I'll try jumping over the sphere pretty soon. However, you will notice that my controls have gone berserk right now. That's because when you choose the player mode as collide with surfaces, we have an option here called left right action. Because this is on rotate, when I press my A and D key, I turn left and right. Most of the times this is great, but sometimes this is great, but most of the times this is not. So what I can do is I can select move sideways. Now if you notice, I can move front, back, left and right, and I can even jump. I can't fly, definitely not. But now as I turn anyway, and I keep pressing the A key on my laptop, I am always focused on the direction that my cursor is looking at. So quick tip, make sure left right action is set to move sideways. And now this is like a first person shooter game. Finally, what if I don't want my camera to move? I want my camera to move some other object in the game. I want the player to move some other object in the game, and my camera should be in a still place. In those cases, I can select none. Now when I go to play mode, if I press W or S or A or D, nothing works. That's because my camera movement is locked. So these are the 3 player movements that Hatch gives us, right? In case you want to make a game where it is the scene that is more important and not the movement of the camera, I can easily change my camera's position to maybe a top view and see the scene as a whole. Now, what if I want to move that sphere object just by controlling W, A, D, and S? Currently, I can't. This is where we need to come in with code. Remember, in my design, my camera is set to no motion, which means it won't move, and I can move any particular object in the scene. So how do I move this object in the scene? Let's go to code, which I've already clicked on. Now, Hatch gives you several functionalities, magic powers, by which you can do this easily. I'm assuming that coding is something that you have done before. So I will not go over the plain details of JavaScript, which is the language that we are going to program this in. But I hope that the way that I explain this should be enough for you to grasp the concepts. Great. So what if I want my sphere to move in front? Let me go to a special function here called scenes and events. Over here, let's click on key down. Now, if you notice over here, I have certain clues that you can use in copy paste, but I won't be using this now. I want to ensure that whenever I press the W key, my sphere should go to the front. So let's do that. If event dot key, which means when I press the key down, which key is being pressed. If it is the W key, I want my player to go front. The bracket here means it's a function, meaning it will do something. What will it do? It will make my sphere go front. What if I want to make my sphere go back? Same way, I copy this code down, and this is how I put it. If I press S, my player should go back. In the same way, I want my player to move left and right, my sphere particularly in this case. Copy these two codes down. If I press A, it should move left. If I press B, it should move to the right. Now, let's understand something, which I said I will give you a sample of earlier. When I have any object and I move it front, right? I'm moving it along the Z axis. As you see, as I move this object in front, the numbers have changed. Just look at the Z axis. It's right now at minus 40. If I bring this sphere closer, you can look at the number, it's increasing, I'm sorry. Increasing, right? So to move anything towards that direction, front, north, the Z axis should decrease. For me to move the object left, just have a look at the X axis here, it decreases. And if I move it right, it increases. What if I want to move it up and down? Have a look at the Y axis here. If I increase it, it goes up. If I decrease it, it goes down. So the Z axis is particularly the one funny. That's why I made a mistake earlier. If you want the sphere to go front, then you need to decrease the Z axis. If you want it to go towards the camera, the other way, the back way, you need to increase the Z axis. Great. We will use this information now to code up basic movement. In order for me to code up these movements, you see the go front, go back, go left, and go right are functions that will ensure that the sphere goes front, back, left, or right. However, I need to write these functions. So let's write go front. This is how you write it in JavaScript. I hope you can follow my syntax. Let x, let z equals to, let's choose the sphere, get z, right? So now I know what the current z of my sphere object is. Let's increase that by 1. Z equals to z plus 1. This is how you do it in code. Finally, let's set the new z, the change z, to my sphere. So sphere dot, if I scroll down, set z. There you go. And this is basically the way by which we can code up all the go front, go back, go left, and go right functions. Let's quickly do so. Watch as I code it down. Go front. This should be go back actually. Which reminds me, I made a mistake. So you see, like I told you, in order for me to send the sphere towards the front, I need to decrease the z. So it will be z minus 1. But in case of go back, I need to increase it, which it is so. It is from mistakes that I learned, and I hope you do too. If I type another function, let's just copy paste that in. Go left. Right? So over here, it is what we need is basically a x-axis, and we will try and access the x-axis. Get x, capital X here, x equals to x plus 1 for me to go left. Am I right? No. Left, the x-axis decreases. So I need to make it minus 1. Finally, let's set the x of sphere, not the z, to the x. I hope this is not confusing, but like I said, this was a crash course. Finally, let's create the go right functionality. And in this case, when I want my sphere to move right, I have to increase the x-axis. Great. So why don't we run our code and see if this is working? If I press W, my sphere goes front. If I press S, my sphere goes back. When this goes back, the z-axis is increasing. I'm reiterating this point again and again because it can get confusing. However, I can press A to make my sphere go left and make my sphere go right. Great. I hope you had some fun by learning movements. There are many movements. You can be the player who's moving around in the game. That means your eyes are traversing the world. Or you can have your player object static in one place, right? While other things in the scene are controlled by you. Or you can even have a first person shooter type walk the earth player who can simply jump and go front, back, left, right. Remember, if you choose this, left, right action should be move sideways for you to be most comfortable to control your character. Great. One final point that I would like to point out is that whenever you want the camera's position to be changed, always select player. We don't want to select camera because camera's position within player will change. If you see I select camera, can you see where my handles are? It's way away from where my player needs to be. However, I want the camera to be centered towards the heart of my player, which is right now actually not visible. But the point is that this is the player that you get to control. Great. So, quick tip, if you do not understand anything what I just said, player is the object you need to select in order for you to move your camera around. Try not to select camera directly. Great. Hope you had fun. Catch you soon for the next objective, which will essentially be design. Great. So let's talk about design. For the game to actually look good when our players play it, we need to think of what visual elements to put. Whether there should be a sky, a floor to walk on, or certain other objects. So to go into this, we must first try and understand that everything in the hatch scene is a game object, right? So as you can see, the box, the sphere, the cylinders, these are all game objects. I'll remove them for now. Great. I clicked on them and deleted them. Even the ground that you see over here is a game object. Now you see our world is bare. If I go to play, I look around, there's nothing much going on because there's nothing to see. So let's try and learn a few ways to design the environment. If I go to environment and I click on built-in templates, I can quickly set up a nice and workable environment for me in 3D space. It looks beautiful. If I want a different flavor, I can go here and I can click on these. By the way, you can also go down and change the different options that you have over here, right? So this will make it definitely a world that you have been imagining in your mind. It will help you achieve that a little quicker. However, what if we don't have the environment object ready built for us? We can make our own. Let's try and bring in a sky object. Cool. So as you can see, I went to environments, and then if I click on gradient sky, I have a beautiful world around me, right? To make this look more like a real world sky, let me go to the shading effect here and choose atmosphere. Wonderful. Can you see the sunshine? If I raise the sun's position on the y-axis a little bit, I get a full morning day. Great. And it's always beautiful if you can bring in an object and rename them. So I'm going to just rename this as sky. This will help me control it by code much more easily later because it's just a 3-letter word, right? Now let's bring in a ground object. And the ground object is beautiful because along with the sky and the ground, you can almost have your real world ready. You see, it looks like I'm lost somewhere in the deserts of Sahara. Late evening, that is. Great. How do I make it look like it's early in the morning? That is not a factor that's played by the sky in Hatch, unfortunately. That's played by light. If I click on light, you see, based on how I move it, it looks as if it's more sunny or not. If I go here to intensity, I can increase the intensity and decrease it. So hopefully you understand the use of the ground object and the sky object in building a game environment for yourself. Let me just change the flavor of this world. Let me remove the color of it and make it a little bit blue. As you can see, I'm getting a totally different effect. Let me whiten the other color. Yes, it looks like I'm in a candy desert right now. I think it's too powerful on the eye, so I'll go for a slightly grayer color. Yeah, beautiful, right? Let me change the pyramids to something else. Let's focus on maybe trees, right? You have small trees there. Let me change the scale to make the trees a little bit bigger and turn them into a green color. Great. So that is how you can bring in interesting environments in any scene that you design. If I scroll back and look a little below, this is a wonderful world that I would like to work in. Cool. Now let's try and also look at what other 3D objects there are for me to play with. If you look at basic objects, I have certain basic objects that I can bring here and use as I like. As you see, the box object just appeared. I can go ahead and choose a sphere object as well. I can go ahead and choose a cylinder object as well. And you can experiment with this on your own. Now, every time I bring an object into the world, it ends up in different places in 3D space. Right? So one of the things that's most important is that when we are working in 3D space, let's always bring in new object and reset its position to 0, 0, 0, x, 0, y, 0, z, which brings it to the center, and now we can reposition it, rescale it as we like. The same can be done with these other objects, the cylinder. Bring it to the center, 0, 0, 0, and then reposition it. This makes it easy also when you're lost in the game world. You can always click on this button here and come to the center of the world and see how the game looks for you. For now, it looks fantastic. Great. But these are simple shapes. What about more complicated shapes? What about we want a human character to play with? That is why we have 3D models. Now, Hatch is not a 3D modeling software, so we have to use a lot of the free models that are available for us to use. For example, if we want an army general, maybe I can just type an army general and have my army person come into the screen. Let's wait for it. Yep, there is an army person, but as you can see, our army person is not rotated right. This is where I teach you a little about rotation. You see, where X is left and right and Y is up and down, Z is front and back. For rotation, it works quite unintuitively. You will think that if I change the X axis, this object will move left and right. But see what happens. Oh, I'm sorry. I changed the scale. Let's change the X Rotation. You see, he's not moving left and right. He's moving front and back. That is along the x-axis. Let's make it into 0. What if we change it on the y-axis? Can you see the y-axis? If I increase the y-axis, you see my object is turning left and right. That's because the y-axis is vertical and it's along that axis that my object changes. So if I want to lift my object and make him look forward, I must change him on the x-axis. If you know your degrees well, minus 90 would do fine here. Why minus? Because if I do plus, it changes the other way. So you have to be very careful of the numbers and understand how these numbers matter in Hatch. So minus 90 gets him in the right rotation. Cool. So you can choose a lot of 3D objects here. Sometimes you can even choose animated characters. Let me go to Sketchfab and click on animated character here, which will give me a bunch of free animation tools for me to work with. Great. Let's take this object. I'm not sure what it does, but we can check it out. It seems the name is in Russian. Great. That's our object. Now, once I click on my object, you see it says clip static pose. Static pose means no animation. But now I chose the second option, which is mixamo.com, and hopefully this animation will start as soon as I play my scene. Let's wait for it. Yes, can you see that? So this is the very beautiful way by which you can just explore the 3D models and use your imagination, to come up with extraordinary games using the tools that are there already without taking the headache to design them. So let me show you a few more tricks. Understandably, whenever you click on player, you have three options: none, free, motion, and for live services, which is very important on how your game works. Whether your camera is going to be staying in one position, whether your camera is going to allow the player to fly around the world, or whether your camera is going to make the player like a first-person shooter game, right? If I were to select camera, the only option that I get is its position, which we don't want to change. Now, if I go to different object like light, so light over here has several options in it. Like for example, the color of the light. I can make this slightly red if I want. I can make this a slightly green if I want. And this will affect how a red or a blue or a green light, interacts with the world and makes it look scenic. It's almost looking scary for me. So I'm just going to make it white. If I also have a few special objects here like text. So if I go to text, I can select a 2D text like this, and you see it appears somewhere here, right? Let me just reposition its value to 0, 0, 0 to bring it to the center of the world. Click on camera center, and from here I can reposition. I'll remove this weird character for now, and even maybe the cylinder object. Let's go to text 2D. Remember, whenever you bring an object in the game that you want to use, you must rename it to something that works. So I'm going to call this message, a message for the player. Maybe a message that gives him the health, maybe a message that gives him tells him how many enemies they are left to kill. It's going to turn into a black color, right? And if I go to play mode now, the message is an object that stays there in the world. I can go around, I can see here, I can see there, right? So I can update this message by code to tell the player where he's at. But an interesting thing is, if I were to make this message a child of the camera object, right? Maybe lift it a little bit, bring it back to where the camera is, closer. Now if I play, as you saw earlier, the text remained in one place in the scene. But now, as I look around, it stays there in the screen with me, just like the score of any first person shooter would be. So this can help make your life very easy because it can help you tell the player what to do. Great. So is there anything else left in design? Yes. Let's look at some objects that you can use in the world. So if I go to multimedia over here and I go to sounds, there are certain sounds that I can bring into the world and use. For example, leopard. Let me put leopard on autoplay and on loop, and let's see how this works in the world. Okay, you may not be able to hear it, but let me quickly stop sharing my screen and connect again. Great. So maybe I will just go into design mode and I will increase the volume of this leopard sound, right? And let me go to play mode now. You should be able to hear the leopard very loudly right about now. There you go. Right? So this is how you can also bring sounds to the game and use them. What if you have a sound that you have on your computer and you would like to use in the game? So let me just go to Google and click on my sound library here. Freesound.org is a great place to get some free sounds. Let's listen to what this sounds like. Maybe I'll go to a different free sound because this requires me to log in. Maybe I'll go to public music, public dom freepd.com, basically free public domain sounds. So if I click on that, that should play any moment now. Not playing. Yeah, great. So I want to, whatever I want to use this sound. Let me first download it into my desktop. And once we have it downloaded, we can upload it into Hatch like this. Go to sounds and simply wherever your file is, click and drag it in. For now, it's not been downloaded, but if you give it just about an 8-second time window, about 5 seconds now, I can upload this sound here. Great. And as soon as the upload is done, now you can use any sound that you have or any sound that you can download from a free public library in your game. Great. That takes a while, but I hope this teaches you the very basic of how to work with design in Hatch. Great. Catch you soon. Our next topic will be on game logic. Hey there. So now we are ready to work with some game logic. So what do we want? We always want the player to achieve some task and face some challenge where when he or she achieves tasks, we reward them for that. And when they face the challenge, we take away their health or their score in some way. So let's create, using this basic idea, a game logic. I have over here Mario, who's going to be my main character. Whenever Mario goes ahead and ends up with Spider, Mario should lose health. But whenever Mario goes and ends up with the rose, the flower object over there, Mario will gain health. Let me first explain what I have in the design mode. I have a quick environment template, a very basic plain one. I have looked for a Mario character, and as soon as I brought it in, I renamed it as Hero. Now this is very important for me to rename items. I'm mentioning this again and again because this is going to be used in the code pretty soon. Then I brought in a spider object and I saw the spider object was very small. So I increased this X, Y, and Z scale to 10. Then we brought in a rose object and renamed it to flower and increased the scale to 5, 5, and 5 on X, Y, and Z. Great. Finally, I also brought in text character which I renamed as message. Even a text value inside, I renamed it as message. This can be simply held for now. Great. And that is how the text object works. Now you see the text object is a child of camera and it's placed in a way so that when I play, clearly the message should be in front of me at all times like it is now. So if I look left and if I look right, the health is there. What if I want the health object to be a little bit more higher? Then simply I can go to design mode. Hold on. Yep. So simply I can go to design mode, click on the text character and lift it a little bit higher, maybe a little more. And now when I see it in play mode, yes, I'm satisfied with where it is there on the screen. But remember, all these things, these text characters, maybe even Mario, can be a child of camera for it to go wherever you turn your camera when you're playing the game. Now, if I press my W key, my S key, A and D key, I don't see Mario move. First and most important thing is that I have set the camera to be locked in one place by giving it no motion. As you can see, there is none, right? So that's the reason why my camera doesn't move ahead, backward, left or right when I press the W, S, A or D keys. However, right at the beginning of this video, the code we wrote is still here. Now, how do I use this code to make Mario go forward? We see the name of Mario, which is hero, and we change all these objects, sphere objects, to hero. Now, one can go in and change them manually like this, but you see, we'll have to do that for a lot of these. So rather, I will click on the editor and I'll press the Control F. Let me write what the old name was, which is sphere. And now by clicking on this arrow over here, I can replace whatever sphere there is in this code to hero. Did I write 0? Great. And now when I click on this button, replace all my spheres have become hero. So this is a quick way that you can re-edit some code just in case you don't have to do it manually. So now see, let's see if our Mario is walking around. Great. Now when I press W and S, Mario is moving around left and right. But if I go ahead and touch the spider character or the flower character, I don't see anything happening. So whenever one object in a game goes and touches another object, we call it collision. Whenever such collision happens, the computer must send us a message that such collision is happening. And then depending on when the collision happens, we can make something happen. So let's try and do this. We will go into another special function right below all the code that we have written and click on hero. Hero is our object. And the very first function you see over here is detect collisions with. Detect collisions with what? Right now, we do not have a box or a cylinder object. We have a spider object and a flower object. So if you have like 10, 20 objects, all of those objects come in this list. So let's just change that. Let's change that to spider. And let's change that to flower. Now, once a collision is detected, that information is stored in this variable over here, collider object. Now, I do not like the word collider object, so I do not need to use the word collider objects if I don't want to. I can change it. I can make it maybe a simple 3-letter word called hit. This will help us in coding. Great. Now, let's see what happens. So I will use a simple JavaScript if condition to check what happens if the object I was collided with was a spider, and to see what happens if the object I was collided with is a flower. So if hit, which is a collided object, dot id. Id is the name of the object. Hit itself doesn't give you the name of the object. So remember this. If you want name of the object, you should go for hit.id. If hit.id equals to spider, we will do something. However, else, making certain mistakes here. Else, if hit.id equals to flower, we'll make something else happen. Right? Now, what is it that we want to do? One thing that we can do is we can set up a variable outside this function. Excuse me. We can call it health. Let health. You see, I'm putting a variable here with a small h. So it's different and unique. Every variable that we create should be different and unique. So right now we don't have anything else in our game called health. So we can happily use this except for this text. But this text actually exists in message, so it doesn't matter. So let health equals to 0. If the name of the object that I collide with is spider, then I want health to increase. Health equals to health plus 1. And then I want to set the text of this message object. How do I do that? Let's go to the message object, set text. Can you see that? Yes, right there. Cool. So what should we change this text to? We'll change the text to health, which will be the primary word that is in our message. But we'll put a space inside that. Then outside I will press plus, and then we will put the health value here. Great. The same thing we can do if the object is a flower. I just copy paste that. Okay, I made a mistake. So when I join with the spider, health must go down. So it must be health minus 1. As you can see, even I can make mistakes from time to time. But there's an easy way to check if you're making a mistake or not, just by running the code. Now, if I run the code now, and I go towards the flower object, you see my health increased. Every time I collide with the flower object, my health increases. And every time I collide with the spider object, my health decreases. Great. So I hope you learned a lot about collisions. So in this way, you can have different objects in the game chase you that you must avoid. And if your health is 0, you can end the game. Or if you get to the winning point without losing your health, then you can win. And that's how you code game logic. Finally, we'll go into special functions in the next brief. And special functions that exist are timers, which help you get something done in the game again and again. And also something called event detectors. So event detectors, we have seen only one of these, which is on key up and on key down, which basically means when you press a keyboard button, what should happen. But we also have a simple click with a mouse and a simple touch, on a mobile device. So we'll look into the special functions in the next brief. Thank you. Hey there. So this is the final lap of our 1 hour video, and hopefully we'll be able to cover the basics of special functions. Now, let me just tell you what addition I've done to this game. I have added 4 different spider objects, which you can see I've renamed as spider 1, spider 2, spider 3, and spider 4. And at the end of the line over there, I've kept my flower object. So essentially what I would want Mario to do is to try and reach that flower object. And when he does, then the game is won by the player. And what I want the spiders to do is I want the spiders to block Mario's path and not make it easy for Mario to reach the flower. Right. So how do I go about this? Also, we can bring in one more game logic where Mario has a timer which tells Mario that he has to try and achieve to get to that flower within a given time. So I'll just make a clone of the text object over here, and I'll call it time. Right. I will maybe move it a little to the right, while the actual message object, text object, I'll move it to the left. Right. So it will be on 2 different parts of a screen. Let me change the text of this time object to time left. Great. Let me just also change the font size for each of them so that it looks a little bit smaller because it's taking most of the screen. Let's make it to 5. Great. And let's also make our message object to 5. Let's, I'm so sorry. I've deleted the word itself. I'll make its font to 5. Great. Now let's see how this looks in our play mode. So it should be looking pretty good now. Yes. So I have health over here and time left over here. Maybe I can move health a little more to the left and time left a little more to the right. Let's try and achieve that. Great. So message goes a little more to the left, not too much, just a little more. And time left moves a little more to the right. Now let's go into code. Once it loads up, we can clearly see that our health object is out of the screen. So we'll try and bring health a little bit more inside and work with that. Now, mind you, this can be seen totally in widescreen play mode, but not in code mode. So to make life easier, I am just making a temporary adjustment to health and bring it a little bit inside. Cool, let's go to code. It should load up any moment now. Great, so you got your health here, you got your time left here, right? Now, as you can see, I already have a health variable declared over here. And what it does is if the object that I hit with is a spider, then essentially my health should decrease. However, this time I have 4 spiders. So instead of writing spider 1, spider 2, spider 3, spider 4 inside this, I can do something else. I can create another variable called let insects. Sorry if this is getting a little gross, but it will help all of us. Square brackets, same way, like this, I will write all the names of the spiders here. So spider 1, comma, spider 2, comma, spider 3, comma, and spider 4. Now I'll not be putting the flower object inside here for a particular purpose because I don't want it to get too complicated while I'm showing you. So now what should I write here instead? I can write the name of this variable simply. So let's go to insects. Great, our variable is in. I will remove all of this so that no matter when I hit a spider object, my health should decrease. Sorry. Let me keep the health at maybe 10. Great. So whenever I detect collision with any of these spiders, health will reduce. Health equals to health minus 1. There's a simpler way to write this, but essentially it's done like this, minus minus. So don't forget, health minus minus means the same thing as health equals to health minus 1. For simplicity's sake, the expert coders will remember this, but for now I will go back to the way I had written it. Health equals to health minus 1. And once that happens, then obviously I want to change the message text over here, this to what? Health space within the quote, and then I will put the actual health variable there, right? So let's see if this works. See, our first problem. Right in the beginning, we don't get the health that we want a character to have. So outside, we can also go and set a text just when the game starts. So I place this here. When the game starts, the actual health will be shown. And as and when I collide with the spider, the health shall decrease. So run script again, and let's test this out. Great. So now you see, as I go close to the spider, I should lose my health one by one. Yep, as you can see, the more I'm colliding with the spiders, my health is going down. So this is working. Let's reset. Now, what about time left? So what I want is I want to create a variable called time left. Let time left. Variable word should not have any space in between. That's why to represent the space, every new word starts with a capital letter, as you've been seeing in most of the code so far. Let time left equals to, should we call it 30 seconds? Now what I want is, as time passes, right, the number, time left number over here should decrease. Let's also set the text of time. Message dot set text. I think so you're already used to it. Set text to what? Time left plus the actual time left variable that we have created. So let's run it. And you can see the health will be 10 while time left will be 30. Let's check if that works. Yes, it works. So health is 10, time left is 30. Great. So now let's set a timer that will run every second and keep on reducing time. So how do we do that? Let's go to timers here and create a timer. Right? Now we can simply call this countdown, this name inside, because by default it's called clock timer, but we want it to be representative of what we want. And we want this countdown to run every second. Right? What should happen inside? The time left should minimize. So expert coders will remember what time left minus minus does. It reduces the time. And then we will set time to the new value after every second. So this will make sure the timer goes down. Let's run script. And as you can see, our timer has begun. Every second that passes, the time is going down. Now, if we wait for long enough, time left will go to 0 and then it will become -1, -2, -3. But we don't want that. You will see that happen as I code the rest of the bit here. What I want is that when time left becomes 0, I want it to show the message game over, right? So how do I do that? I go to another function here called remove timer. And what's the timer that we want to remove? We want to remove the countdown timer because that's the name of the timer in the string, as you can see above. Same name here, same name here. Can you see by now? Time left has gone to negative and it will keep on decreasing. So what we want is we want to create a if condition. If time left equals to 0, then we should remove and kill this timer and stop it, right? But not just that, we also want to set the text of health, or maybe we'll set the text of time left only into game over, right? So let's try that. I can go for a time.set text again and make it into game over. Right? We should also stop this timer from running. So let's run script. Right. So let's see if our game over works when this comes to 0. By that time, let me try and create a few more timers. Why do we need to create a few more timers? Because I want each of my spider characters also to be moving with the timer. I want my timer to push my spider characters along the x-axis. So the x-axis should increase for each of the spider every second so that it blocks Mario's path. Let's try that. Oh, we have achieved game over. So this is working great for us. So let me create a timer called move spider. And essentially I want this timer to not run every second. So I think I forgot to mention one thing. 1000 here represents 1 second because 1000 is 1000 milliseconds. 1 second has 1000 milliseconds in it. So if I want this timer to, let's say, run at 1/5 of its current speed, what would that be? That would amount to 100. Nope, it would not amount to 100. It will amount to 200. I'm gonna go for a really small time, 20. So this should run every 20 milliseconds, which is pretty fast. Now, if I were to just give you an example, let me set the x of the spider. Let x equals to spider1 dot get x, right? And then I want to increase x plus plus for those who remember. And finally, I want to enter set the new x of the spider, right? Which should be x. Oops, the x variable that I declared here, right? So x, great. Now let's run script and see what happens, and you will see quickly. That my first spider is moving. Can you see that? Let's say the x of the spider is at 35. So every time the x of the spider is at 35, I will reset it to its initial position. If spider dot get x or is greater than 35, I shall change the initial x of the spider. Let's just save the initial x of the spider outside, right? So let initial x equals to spider 1 dot get x, right? So I will set the spider's x to its initial once the spider goes beyond a little bit of a limit, right? So spider 1 dot set x, right? And what are we going to set it to? If the spider's x is greater than 35, we'll set it to the initial x of the spider. So initial x. Now mind you, because the initial x is a variable that's declared outside this function, it won't change. So this will always allow us, our spider, to get back to its initial place. we will notice in just a little minute, in just a minute or so, in a second or so, the spider reset its position to its initial place. Now I can create individual timers for all the spiders like this, right? However, if I do so, let's just try and do that for two characters. So this one should be spider 2, spider 2, spider 2. I know I told you a simple controller function earlier, which should make doing this easier, but it might remove the earlier spider also, which we don't want. So let's run this script now. We finally see a problem. We need to rename two different timers differently. You see that timer ID move already exists. So let's just call this mover 2. Great. Let's run script. So we have two spiders moving for us, right? But I see that the spiders are moving at the same rate, so it'll be very easy. Once the spiders cross me, I can simply go ahead and try and reach the flower, right? The logic of reaching the flower is still not in place, but we'll be doing that. But you can see this is pretty simple, right? So what I can do is make the spiders move at different times, or maybe at different values, right? So for example, over here, instead of x plus plus, which means x equals to x plus 1, I can simply write x equals to x plus 0.5, right? And when I run it, you see the two characters, the two spiders move in different speeds. Let's wait for it. Yep. Can you see the first spider is moving a little bit faster than the second spider, which can make it difficult for me to reach my target. Now you can create 4 different timers for each of the spiders, right? Right. So that would be one game logic. Finally, let's just do a detect collision with flower, which should end all the game and allow me to win. So to do that, let me go to flower. Oh, sorry, hero. Hero.detect collisions with only one object, which is flower. What should happen when this happens is essentially it should kill all the active timers. And right now we have several timers in place. We have a mover timer, we have a mover 2 timer, we have a time left timer. So let's try to kill all these timers, right? So timer dot remove timer. And let's remove the first time, which is called countdown. Let's copy paste that. So essentially what we're doing is when we detect collision with the flower, all these timers should stop. And right now we have created a mover 1 and a mover 2 timer. Basically a mover timer and a mover 2 timer. Right. Okay. So finally what we want is we want a message text to say you win. Right. So at least that's a full game. You win. So as soon as I touch the flower object, I should get a message that I have won and everything should stop moving, even the timer. Let's wait for it. And now once, oh, I'm too fast for it. Let's just reach the flower. As you can see, I am almost there. Yep, I win.
time left, and the spiders have stopped moving. Great. So that's a good game logic. However, there are certain things we can do to make this game work better, which I'll be sharing in the version 2 of our VR crash course. So thank you for sticking around and have fun coding.